M83 Fantasy Album Review. Let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning here tonight to chat about this latest album from M83, legendary French synth-pop electronic artist. I should say electronic band, headed by Anthony Gonzalez. They have been at it for quite some time, and for quite a few years, they were my go-to in the genres of synth-pop, electronic music. They're more shoegazy albums as well. They're dream pop recordings too, even if I've never been into the more ambient sides of their self-titled album. But since the release of their modern synth Odyssey, Dead Cities, Red Seas, and Lost Ghosts, M83 for quite some time was just a go-to act for me, and I was hooked to everything that they were doing. I mean, their work was so meticulously detailed. It had such this feeling of youthfulness to it, and this sense of adventure that I wasn't getting in a lot of many other artists. And I thought their follow-up album, Before the Dawn Heals Us, was even more sprawling, taking influences from more genres, like some shoegaze and some dream pops, like I was saying. And I thought this was just even more of a cinematic masterpiece overall, but it never really felt bloated to me. This was never an Anthony Gonzalez ego trip. This was just a really adventurous, spacious album that you could really just walk up to and enjoy from first listen. Now, I've never been a big Digital Shades guy. I haven't. And the Digital Shades Volume 2 that we got a few years ago, I was very lukewarm on as well. But I still stand by my thought in thinking that Saturdays Equals Youth is probably my favorite album of theirs from start to finish. But it's been since then that, my adoration and obsession with the band's music, as well as just my ability to take it all in, has gone downhill. I mean, I love Midnight City as much as the next guy, but Hurry Up, We're Dreaming is so freaking bloated. And 2016's Junk to this day remains one of my most negative reviews I've ever given. This album sucks. It has been quite some time since we heard from M83, and leading up to this album, I thought most of the singles were pretty decent sounding, actually. Let's chat about this thing. This album starts off with Water Deep. And, I heard this track coming from a mile away, and I actually put up my guards. I hear the acoustic guitar in an M83 track, and I just get worried. But it is a very serene track, and once it gets its footing, it's actually masterfully done. Between the cinematic nature and the hazy synths that work their way in, this fills my heart with the same amount of adventure that I got listening to early work from M83. It's gorgeous, and it just has so much heart and passion to it. This is how you start off an M83 album in the year 2023. I've enjoyed Ocean's Niagara since it dropped as a single. I mean, it is very straightforward. It is incredibly straightforward. So much so that you may genuinely hate it, and I get it. But for me, this just sounds like it came so easily to M83. It sounds like Anthony Gonzalez just picked up his paper and just was able to put this out in 5 minutes and have it become just like really catchy and really heartfelt. It's instantaneous. It's got that huge synth part to it. It's got a little upbeat flair to it as well. I love the driving riff that we get. No pun intended, it fills my heart with the adventure that I love. It brings me back to a simpler time in M83's discography, as does Amnesia. I struggled not to put this as my favorite track here. It's very whimsical. It's got those epic fantasy vibes that I've always enjoyed. But on top of that, it's upbeat, it's carefree, it's breezy, it has that youthful quality that so many classic M83 tracks have. And this chorus is freaking tremendous. Listening to this track just put a huge smile on my face. I mean, it's nothing absolutely groundbreaking from M83, but it's really instantaneous. It puts me in a good mood. Hell, it makes me just want to go back to their early recordings and fall in love with them all over again. The whole first leg of this journey of this album is done really well. Us and the Rest is one of the more atmospheric moments here. It has that cinematic edge to it once again. It's on the more serene side once again. We're not getting a big power riff or some synths. This is a slow burner, but it's powerful, it's sweet, it's epic, it's done right. It feels to me like this has a place in the M83 lore and just the narrative of their albums. It just does. A lot of this album actually does fit in very nicely. Earth to Sea is also really nice. It's once again a nice breakup from these big, atmospheric, slow-burning tracks with another upbeat and very carefree and breezy tune. And once again, these hooks are friggin' memorable, Anthony. You did good. I mean, you could argue that this track didn't need to be 7 minutes long, but it breezes by, and it is so easy to take in, and I can't remember the last time I said either one of those things about an M83 track. Even the final 2 minutes, which are mostly instrumental, just warm my heart. Like I said, though, the whole first leg of this album is actually really impressive. Listening to the singles leading up to this album's release had me pumped. My only issue is there is still such a slippery slope with modern M83's music. Radar or Far Gone is the beginning of the decline for this album. This track is just way too airy and sweet for my liking. Like I said earlier on, when I hear an acoustic guitar in M83's music, I usually head for the hills, and this is my worst nightmare, this track. My fears have been realized. This track is completely soulless, and if this track eventually, at least got a little meat on its bones and just, picked up a little bit, I don't think I'd be pissed off, but this just aggravates me to no end. This track, for its entire 4 minutes, progresses not at all. I think it's the most boring track here, and it is just a stark reminder of just, the slippery slope that is modern M83. This album's title track, Fantasy, sounds like a junk leftover. It is really rough. Like I said earlier, I could always use a nice, upbeat, carefree, adventurous sounding track from M83 these days, but then we get this, and it sounds like Anthony is just trying to put together a modern synth-pop track that's much more polished, and it's rough. How is this album so lopsided? When it gets bad, it gets really, really bad very, very quickly. And listen, in modern synth-pop, God, I feel like every band has ripped off M83 at least at some point in their career, but here on this track, M83 don't sound like they can go toe-to-toe with themselves. It's bad. Laura from a Distance doesn't sound like the worst sin committed here. I do like the atmosphere here. The heavy synths are really cool as well. But what follows here is just completely soulless once again. There's no heart. There's no passion. This sounds like any who's who in modern synth-pop trying to make a track sounding like M83 but having no respect for the genre. And Cool Knew It featuring Kayla, honestly, this track From a Distance, it certainly sounds nice. Yes, nice is the word. But this just doesn't hit me as like an M83 track. And don't get me wrong, this track is over 8 minutes long, and it does have a great atmosphere, and it does have some mystery to it. Hell, there are even moments of sheer beauty on this track that I haven't heard on the rest of this album. But the lack of progression, once again, this goes nowhere. And listen, this album is over an hour, and I can assure you it did not need to be over an hour. It is really rough, honestly, and even in the second half when Anthony picks things up, things just get more annoying than anything. And Dismemberment Bureau is really rough as a finale. I was expecting some big bold statement. We do not get that. This is another over 7 minutes, slow moving, slow progressing, hazy track. These vocals are so forgettable as well. Like, I don't know what was going through Anthony's mind writing this finale, but I can't give this album a pass. I mean, yes, there's a lot of great material here, but the material here that is bad is going well over 7 minutes and going nowhere with it. It's really disappointing. I do think Sonny Boy Part 1 and 2, though, are actually some late album moments of magic. I mean, the first part is one of the less revealing tracks here. You definitely have to sit with it. But I do like the soaring guitars and the very intense, patient drumming. It's really cool. It's got that epic, larger-than-life feel. It is tremendous. It also picks up into one of the more fun tracks here. And once again, my hat is off to these hooks. Anthony, when you are on point, you are a magician. Listen, if you're over M83, I get it. There's enough material on this album to really just kind of write this album off, sadly. But if you're into just, giving this album just a little bit of a time of day, you're going to find some late album magical tracks. And Sonny Boy Part 2 is really great as well. I mean, it's not the most exciting track here, but as far as a absolutely serene and gorgeous and atmospheric sort of interlude, it is done wonderfully. So you know what? This album actually started off really hot with some of M83's best work since I think Saturdays Equals Youth as far as, the full album is concerned. And after hearing just how bloated Hurry Up We're Dreaming is and just how abysmal Junk is, that at least got me on my good side. But the problem with this album is it's over an hour long. Some of the worst tracks here, which there are quite a few of them, go well over 7 minutes long and do not progress, just bore me and take me out of the good mood that I was in leading up to this album. There's some great stuff here, but I can't give this album a pass. There's so much boring material here that I just can't get through. It's really rough at the end of the day. I'm feeling a decent 6 on this album from M83, but let me know what you all think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.